The EP Podcast. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always at theeppodcast.com.
"2024 is in the books, and the EP Podcast on this episode takes you through the year that was, getting you ready for 2025. My name is Chris Lanuti, and thank you very much for listening to the EP Podcast, which has now been around for over 6 years and will mark its 7th anniversary in Evergreen Park in 2025. We've come a long way from the first time that I put a tent up at an event and everybody said, "Who is that guy and why is he so crazy?" And now you're all listening to podcasts. It's amazing. And for most of the years you have been listening to the EP Podcast, it has been brought to you proudly by the First National Bank of Evergreen Park. Let me tell you something. I appreciate this group so much. They are the reason, one of the big reasons, that the EP Podcast made it this far. And they take care of their customers. They take care of me. They got my business account, my personal account. They got all the kids' accounts. You get free ATMs nationwide with their checking accounts. You get a $300 bonus with qualifying activities. You get mobile banking tools second to none. There's no overdraft fees. And if you have a problem, a person, an actual human being, is there to help you. And I never need an appointment. It's an old school bank doing new school things right on the corner of 95th and Pulaski. Go in and see them today. The First National Bank of Evergreen Park, member FDIC. As we have done every year for New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, we present a clip show of the previous year. Some of the best stuff that you may have heard or may not have heard on the EP Podcast. Remember, we're on demand. So if you hear a clip and you're like, "I missed that," you can go back and listen to it. You can hear every show of the last 7 years. It's a public record of everything that has happened in Evergreen Park. But these were some of the episodes. These were some of the interviews that got the most listens in 2024. Whether it was our first interview with Village Trustee Carol Kyle, after a boil order was issued in Evergreen Park, we had in an expert who takes care of your water to explain it. A local Little League team went to a World Series. We learned all about the street cleaning process from the guy that drives the truck. You talked about the rat problem online on Facebook. We had the health inspector in to explain it all. The EP Podcast had in so many local officials, so many people that impact your life, and each and every week you get that on demand. Remember, if you listen to us but you've never subscribed, there's a reason why you're missing some shows. Don't miss an episode. Get to the eppodcast.com now. You can pause the show for a moment. Look at all the possibilities, all the different ways you can listen, you can follow, you can subscribe. It's free, and never miss another episode. But just in case you did, here's some of the best of 2024. I always love when we get somebody new who has been listening to the show for a while, who's been on my wish list to talk to. Carol Kyle is one of your many village trustees. How are you, Carol?
I'm very good, thank you. I'm glad for the invitation to see this beautiful bar you built.
You know, first off, what took so long? Just you weren't sure about me?
No, I wasn't, like you say. One of the time I remember meeting you was when you came over to the food pantry, and this
That's
was
right.
several years ago.
Yeah,
like maybe around when you were just starting, and you supported us. Number one, I'm thinking, who is this guy? Who's John talking to? I liked you then.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yes.
I love what the food pantry does over there. I think that it's, and the way that it's run, and the way that they have, their set of rules, but they're not going to turn anybody away.
No, we don't.
Who needs anything.
No.
And it just feels like there's so many people in the community that are working at it. You get a lot of young kids that come over there and volunteer.
Amazing.
It is really just, you always hear the phrase, it takes a village. The food pantry takes a village, and there are people from all over the village that help it out, and I think that's absolutely wonderful. So there's a lot of things that we could talk about today.
Yeah, there are.
I get people that hit me up all the time because they think that I know everything, and I don't. I'm just the dumb podcast guy. But you probably have some answers for me. So but before we get into those, a couple basic ones. Where in Evergreen are you? Like, what quadrant are you in?
Well, I currently live and have for the last 47 years the Southwest.
Okay.
I mean Southeast.
Southeast.
I was born and raised in Northeast on 87th and Mozart.
Okay.
Got married. When I got married, we bought our first and only house, our starter home, in the Southeast quadrant. My 2 children have chosen to stay in Evergreen, thank the Lord, and their homes are in the southwest quadrant. So I've just about been in every quadrant, not necessarily living, but very active. And then, of course, the sports and everything else, they've been in the northeast quadrant also, northwest.
Do you see the differences in the quadrants? Because I always say everything is pretty much the same, but everybody acts like this is my territory. Where do you live? I live over here. Oh. Like, I get that all the time.
It's kind of like parishes.
Yeah.
It's like parishes. I don't know. I think it's south side. I don't necessarily think that there's difference with the quadrants and people. I'm from this quadrant, you're from this quadrant. I see a lot of community things because there's stuff on both sides, not only sports, but schools, activities. So, yeah, I don't see the big division, but people do say it. Like they say parishes.
Well, I think what's funny is that there's been a push, I think, in the last 5 years to really unify everything. Now you see events happening over at Sexton Park that we probably didn't have as many of them going on over there. And everything used to always kind of sit on the other side of town. You see that even the summer concert series, it's moving.
It has
It's not
moved.
in one
It has
location,
moved.
which I think is
It
great.
has moved.
And
But that's because of there is more space, like Sexton Park.
Yeah.
The park, of course, Sexton Park, it really is.
Well, I like when it moves around. I
do
think that's
too.
the thing. I mean, you see things over at Yukich, you see things over at Sexton Park, you see things over at Klein Park or Circle
Right.
Park, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And so I think that's great that it moves around. You became a trustee when? Because I believe you've been a trustee for a little while now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I was appointed as a trustee in February of 1988. It was after my father passed away, Robert Norris, who was a trustee.
And that's what Norris Field, that's who Norris Field is named after,
Norris
right?
Field was named after my dad. Jim Sexton was a young trustee at the time, was very fond of my dad, and did his history and looked it up and saw everything that he had done. So as my dad was dying of cancer, my dad knew, thanks to Jim Sexton, that there was going to be a park named after him. That was pretty cool.
That is cool.
It's very cool.
I always find it so interesting that that there are families or there are just lines in Evergreen Park that choose the service of serving Evergreen Park as like part of their almost like their family line or their destiny or whatever it is. I mean, and it's not like it's handpicked for you, right? I mean, you're elected and everything else like that, but it's like you choose to go out there and fix problems and pay attention to what's going on inside of you mentioned the food pantry.
Right.
You're not just a trustee, you're helping out at the food pantry.
Right. I started with the food pantry when I retired from teaching. That's what I did for my career. As far as Norris Field, I mean, I was young and I had 2 little ones, and they asked, I was a precinct captain, and I got a phone call one night and they said, would you be interested? And we would really like a woman trustee.
Yeah.
So this goes to show you, boy, back then, at that time, there was no woman trustee. So
Are you the first?
no.
No. Okay.
Jean Krupiak was the first.
Okay.
Yes. No, I was the second.
So you get in there.
Oh, I get in there, but it just wasn't a hands down.
No.
I had to do a resume. There were interviews. There were like 15 people that ran for that position, and I was lucky enough. They picked me. Didn't know why I was doing it at the time, but thought, my dad had just passed away, and I was staying home, and I was a teacher, and got involved, and here I am many more years later.
Did you get that from Dad, the idea of being involved in the community and
The whole
working at those
family
things?
is.
Yeah.
I have a brother and a sister that are involved in special needs, and they're administrators at places. Yes, my other brothers are firemen. Yeah. Kitchen table talk.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Kind of gets you going, right? Like I always thought that I would never do anything in law enforcement, and the whole
There you
family
go.
was law enforcement, and then all of a
Right.
sudden I was working in a 911 center for 10 years.
Mm-hmm. And you liked it.
Even though I was a radio broadcaster, somehow
Yeah,
they got me eventually
Right.
to go in there and do that job for a little
Right.
bit. If I go to a village board meeting, are you a big question asker or are you
I
quiet?
am. I'm one of the. Yep.
Yeah?
I'm a Mark Marzullo.
Yeah?
Yeah. Not
You
as
dive in
not
on
as
him?
not as much, but yeah, pretty close. Yeah. I dive in.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, if you want to, it's every other week, the village meetings. You can go see Carol in action. And I really appreciate you coming down here and joining me on the podcast. Carol Kyle, one of our trustees, thanks so much.
Thank you so much. I finally got to see the bar.
I know.
It's beautiful.
You like it?
I like it.
Okay.
I like it.
We are at Day at the Park, the Food Truck Festival, and I have a very special guest. Brian Harmon is the head coach of the 10-year-old Cal Ripken Evergreen Park baseball club team, the all-star team essentially is what this is, right?
That's a mouthful, yes.
Yeah, that's a lot, but I think I got it right,
Yes,
right? Okay,
correct.
so you guys have been invited, and I believe this is for the first time ever, to the Cal Ripken Little League World Series in Crown Point, Indiana, correct?
Yes. So we won the Cal Ripken State Championship for Illinois, which gave us a bid in the Ohio Valley Regional. So we had 13 families down in Lexington, Kentucky last weekend. Had a great tournament, a lot of fun, a lot of good time for the boys, run around the hotel, and so they did very well. We actually were finished runner-ups, probably also maybe one of the first times we've done that in the history of our club. So we left there kind of thinking baseball was over for the summer. It was a great season. Today is Thursday. Got a call yesterday about 3 o'clock from Babe Ruth headquarters that we were invited to the World Series in Crown Point, Indiana. So
that's amazing. I mean, that's so cool. And then you got to reach out to the kids and be like, kids, guess what? Pack your bags. Normally when you said we're going to Crown Point, they wouldn't be excited, but this is exciting. Like, you were telling me the countries you'll be playing, because you're going to start against international Little League champions right off the bat. Yeah. Who are you facing again in your initial pod?
Yeah, so we don't have the schedule yet, but there's 24 teams, 20 from the States, and then there's 4, one from Australia, one from Czech Republic, one from Germany, and then Australia. So people from Australia coming to Crown Point, Indiana for 10-year-old baseball.
I mean, I've done that flight one time in my life. I don't know how a bunch of 10-year-olds are going to make it across. That's a long flight. Yeah. They're going to be worn out, but excited. Okay, and they're probably going to be walking around breaking Foster's beer cans on their heads. They're from Australia.
Maybe we'll play them on their travel day and they'll be tired.
That's a different breed of kid from Australia. The Aussies are a little nuts, so that'll be fun. Your kids get exposed to that. Yeah. So getting ready for it, first of all, it's like what, first weekend or second weekend of August?
Yeah, so it's August 8th. They'll have like an opening ceremony. Yeah. And the kids all get like uniforms. We'll march in with our state flag. There'll be a big ceremony. Then they'll have like a skills competition on the 9th, and then we'll start games on the 10th. So Saturday the 10th, and it really runs through the next Saturday. So we'll have games kind of throughout that week.
Do you practice in advance now?
Sure.
Are you like, does it get intense, or do you say I don't want to do anything that will make them nervous? Like, just kind of like, hey, we're going to have normal practices. Yeah. Remember how to throw a baseball. You guys are good. Let's go have fun, right?
Yeah, that's been our goal all along. I mean, this is 10-year-old baseball. It's always fun. It's never intense. This is completely about the experience, to be able to go and play against all these different states, all these different countries. Like, they're going to remember this the rest of their lives. And, if we're competitive, that's great, but it's really more about the experience for those boys and the families. It's really going to be a neat experience for them.
Listen, you got to be prepared too. You go deep in this thing, you might be doing press. You might have to talk. There might be a mic'd up moment. Like, I'm excited for you.
That could be. Yeah.
You got to think about
maybe ESPN.
You got to get ready for your inspirational speech that's going to be trending on Twitter.
Yeah, right.
Like, look at this coach.
Yeah,
that's my favorite coach. Like, you want to be that. You don't want to be hashtag that guy's crazy. Don't be
exactly. Screaming, throwing bats out there. No, we won't be doing that. We'll represent Evergreen Park very well.
Building relationships, supporting the community, and service. These are the things that Country Financial stands for. They're more than just an office you may pass by as you drive through Evergreen Park. They're neighbors who lend a helping hand and support the fabric of your community, including charitable organizations, sports, financial education, and civic organizations. And since Country is already your neighbor, they want to get together and chat. Call your local Country Financial representative, Mike Thauer, today at 708-425-1559 to talk about the things that are important to you and how he can help you protect them. Sitting down here at the 9-foot homemade oak bar, we have Mike Ward. He's with Evergreen Park Public Works Water Management, and he's the perfect guy to bring in here because there was a hubbub just recently about a boil order in the EP. How are you, Mike?
Good. How are you, Chris?
I'm good. I appreciate you stopping by and talking with me.
Yeah, no problem.
So I kind of got this because I think you and I had a conversation once. You came over here and tested my water, which was like a random test. You do that from time to time. You'll stop by houses and you'll be like, hey, we're just making sure everything's going well and doing the individual houses. Is that how often do you do that?
Well, I sample every week, required by the EPA. And those are routine samples. What I did here was come over after a water main break on 99th Street.
That's right. I remember that now. You came in and you were like, I just want to double check a couple of houses individually. You were getting good readings, like overall.
Yes.
But you were like, just a precaution. I want to make sure everything's okay.
Yeah, just to take a special sample, additional sample during my weekly sampling. If there's a main break and it's bad enough where they have to throttle down valves, I'll try to take a sample between the distance that the valves were turned down. So in this case, it would have been like half a block on 99th Street.
You know, I'm one of those people that I'm a tap water kid. You know, I'm a child of the 80s. I grew up in Chicago nearby Evergreen Park. I've been here now for 18 years. And I'm a tap water family. We don't keep a lot of bottled water around. I keep it for the guests sometimes. But I drink the tap water. We use the tap water to boil, to cook food with. So it's important to me that I feel like it's safe. Now, Chicago provides to Evergreen Park, correct?
That is right.
Okay,
yes.
So Evergreen essentially is paying Chicago to bring the water in. I'm sure that comes out of our property taxes or some kind of bill somewhere. It might actually be, if I'm not mistaken, I get a water bill every 3 months, right?
That's correct, yes.
That's what I'm getting. Okay. So, and then we're kind of beholden to what they're charging the village, right? I mean, it's kind of like they look at us and say, hey, we have all the water. This is what we're charging you.
Yeah. They do all the treatment. What I do is just add additional chlorine, after the water.
So there's a little extra that Evergreen Park gets. What is the purpose of that? Because I hear chlorine and I think to myself, well, I put a lot of chlorine in my pool, but I wouldn't drink it.
Right. It's a disinfectant. Just kills bacteria that may be present in the water. So Chicago does all the treating, adds fluoride and does all the... You go on Chicago Water Management's website and you can see what the comprehensive chemical analysis is that the Chicago Water Management does on the water. If you're interested in that, and even chromium-6 is another, problem chemical that is people are concerned with.
Showing up in water. I want to get into that in a second. Let's get to the boil order thing, though, first, because I know people are curious about that. So you correct me if I'm wrong. Evergreen Park's getting their water from Chicago, but it doesn't all come through one singular pipe. It's being fed. Different areas are getting it fed from different pumping stations in Chicago, correct?
Mm-hmm, that is right.
All right, so there is that one section is to the east of Evergreen Park, okay, right up against Beverly. And that boil order was mostly Chicago and a very small strip, very important strip still, of Evergreen Park. But that's coming off of one station. And I remember a few years ago, there was a problem with water pressure from that Chicago station. And because the water wasn't pressurized enough, there was a chance that contaminants could get in. And that's why there was the boil order a few years ago there. Is this the same thing?
Yes. It just, whatever happened with the city at the Roseland pumping station caused pressure to drop enough to where Chicago Water Management, consulting with the Illinois EPA, thought it would be a good idea to just issue that boil order for the areas affected, which were Beverly, Morgan Park, and Auburn Gresham. The reason that those few houses on California were included in that boil order is for whatever reason they get their water directly from the city of Chicago and not Evergreen Park's water distribution system.
Okay.
So they may get a bill from Evergreen Park, which is your garbage pickup. But I think as far as water and also their sewer charges are from Chicago. So for whatever reason, those homes in Evergreen Park...
Oh, the pipes were not made exactly with the borders.
Yeah, just on that stretch, their water comes from the city of Chicago. So those few homes in Evergreen Park were affected by the boil order.
So explain the pressure thing to me, because I had somebody ask me about it.
Sure.
Because I was trying to tell somebody, I was like, I think this is because of pressure coming out of a station. It's over there, because I remember that from a couple of years ago. And they're like, well, why does pressure make a difference? And I was like, I don't know. Like, if the water slows down, more stuff comes out of the pipes. Like, I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah, I think when a pipe becomes unpressurized, contaminants can then enter the pipe from the ground. When a pipe is pressurized, if there's a break in the pipe, water
moves so fast it's not getting through the crack and getting in there.
Well, it's escaping the pipe, not allowing anything into the pipe as long as the pipe is pressurized.
Oh, so here I'm getting this now. So I'm picturing, let's say we have a stretch of pipe. It's an old pipe. It's been under there forever, because you have to think about the infrastructure of this entire city is old. Mm-hmm. I just had the pipes in my house redone. We had a leak where what happened was the drain pipe underneath the kitchen sink broke, and so when you were running water in there, it was dripping into the basement. So then I had a plumber come over, and as he removes that pipe, another section of pipe in the house just falls.
No.
And he's like, oh no, it's not connected anymore, because the pipes in the house are so old that the rust, like where everything's screwed in, it's all come loose, and there's these cracks and there's these openings. So he redid the whole thing with PVC pipe. He's like, I've already got to open up your wall in 2 places. Do you want me to finish this? And I'm like, yes, just finish it. So we did the whole thing, and now it's all redone in there. But he's like, this is going to happen to all these houses, and this is what's going on underneath the ground. So what you're describing is there's a possibility that some of the pipes that are part of the infrastructure, either in Chicago or moving in Evergreen Park, may eventually have wear and tear, and you'll have these cracks. If there's so much pressure, water's going out, so contaminants can't get in. When the pressure drops, now all of a sudden the contaminants can get in through the cracks.
That's I guess, a good layman's explanation.
That's a podcaster's explanation.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. It sounds great to me. Yeah.
Works for me.
Yeah.
Mike Ward from Evergreen Park Public Works, Water Management. Thanks so much for stopping by.
Yeah, no problem. If you want to do it again, we'll see how things go.
Cool. Sitting down here at the 9-foot homemade oak bar, I have Jeff Leahy. He is a health inspector with the Village of Evergreen Park. And Jeff, you know why you're here. Everybody's talking about it online. There's rats.
Now, we've always had a rat problem, but going back to Mayor Vacco, Mayor Sexton, and now Mayor Burke, they've always made it a priority. So we've always had, each Friday, we go out into the neighborhood and we bait. No other community does this. Chicago used to bait the alleys, but we don't do that because that's too dangerous.
Yeah.
What we do is we have an animal control person. She's a part-time employee. She fields calls from various residents. We instituted recently a rat hotline. The rat hotline is available for people to call and say that they've seen rats in their yard or in their neighbor's yard or in the alley or wherever, the easement. But we've been doing this probably for over 20 years. It's just that this year it's been a real problem. We had a very warm spring. Spring came early, and we didn't have a deep freeze. So there was more activity, and there are consequently more rats.
Animals live because there's not a freeze. I mean, there's a reason why we don't get the same kind of animals up in the northern states than we get in the southern states. Certain animals can't survive because of weather, and outdoor animals like a rat that have to find shelter, more of them would have died off if it would have been
That's
normal
correct.
Winter.
Not only that, they don't have a food source. Now, If it's a mild winter, they're more able to salvage food, roam around the neighborhoods or your backyard in particular. That's why it's very important to keep your garbage cans and the lids tight, because basically they're looking for food. That's all, And like you said, they were out more. Now, it sounds odd, but we had COVID a couple years ago, and a lot of the restaurants closed, so they kind of moved towards, out of this downtown area.
It's interesting, like the restaurants closing changed like the patterns for them.
Yeah, it did somewhat, and what happened is...
So Chicago shut down, and they came to places that were more open.
Well, they came for food sources.
That's crazy.
Well, it is crazy, and people don't realize it.
Yeah.
I was joking with my fellow staff members, and I said, well, I'm going to bring up climate change, I'm going to bring up COVID, I'm going to bring up the different reasons why this year might have been a change, and we've just touched on 2 of them. When all the restaurants shut down because of COVID, they had to come and look for food sources. The other thing is, and it's interesting, particularly in the Southwest area, they built a soccer field over at Mother McCauley. And now currently they're building they're building
baseball diamond over at Rice.
Yeah, it's more than.
And Evergreen Park High School did theirs just a couple of years ago, where they redid all that.
And all of them were involved, doing digging, and
digging brings the rats.
Well, the rats are there. It just brings them and relocates the rats. They're in an environment, and you think about it. You're by St. Xavier's. They got the pond. They're in an environment where they're close to a residential area, but they live underground. And when you start digging, and we just put a nice development over there off of Cadsey Avenue, and that required digging. So whenever there's digging going on, you'll see an uptake in the rat population and the animal population in general. I'm not an expert on animals, but I've been doing this rat thing for a long time. And whenever there's like excavation of any sort, it disturbs their habitat. And prevention is a lot better than the cure. I mean, there are things, and I said already about the bird feeders. I said also not to ground feed. I also said the dog feces. But also, it's just in general, you want to store your bird feed, your bird seed, your grass seed. You want to put it in a secure container, and you're less likely. Now we'll go in a garage and we'll abate it, and you can see where the rats do their business, and the rats poo is a lot bigger than a mouse poo. Okay, and so the mice is like
tiny little pebbles,
tiny.
Yeah.
And the rat's probably about a half an inch in
Okay, so
length.
that looks different. Okay.
It does look different.
Yeah, okay.
And if it's gray, and like real gray, that means it's probably been there and they're gone, because if I go into a garage and I see there's mice or droppings or rat droppings, and it's real gray and it's not like almost metallic.
They haven't been there.
They haven't been there in a long time, right?
I've learned so much today. I love this.
It's all true. It's little things that mean a lot.
708-577-7287. Give a call. That's the rat hotline here in Evergreen Park, 708-577-7287. Jeff here is going to take care of you. He's going to get the right people out, professionals who are going to do a professional job going after the rats, and they're fighting a battle. And I was going to ask you, where in Evergreen are they most prevalent? But I think I can figure it out now, because you're like, where are we digging? Where we're digging is probably where they're at the most. When you're leaving a lot of things in your backyard that they can eat, that's where they're hanging out. And so if you want to know where they're at or how to avoid having them come to your home, I think you learned an awful lot. And Jeff, I really appreciate you jumping on the EP podcast.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
As we roll through the best of 2024, a quick reminder coming up next week. We are going to have Frank Murray from the Evergreen Park Public Library at Spoken Vine, Wine Bar and Bottle Shop, northeast corner of 95th and Kedzie. Incredible small plates, a wide array of wines, special wine club benefits. You go in there, you find something you like, you can buy it from the bottle shop. A great place to hang out over the holidays. If you still have time left during the holidays, you got date night coming up this weekend. Get over there to Spoken Vine. See more at SpokenVineWines.com. Frank's coming up soon. Every month we have our medical segment with OSF Little Company of Mary. You're going to hear about more that's going on with the high school and with District 124 and everything going on in your village. As we head to the end here of this show, I want to say thank you so much for a good 2024, and I look forward to 2025 with you right here on the EP Podcast. Sitting down here at the 9-foot homemade oak bar, Tim Moore is a guy you may not have met before. I've known him for a while, though. How are you, Tim?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
We play 16-inch softball together.
We do.
Yeah, it was easy to set up this interview. All right, so you have a job that most Evergreen Park people probably wonder, like, who's the guy that does that? Is it a bunch of different people that do it? It's you. It's one truck. It's street cleaning. Street sweeping. What do you prefer? Street cleaning, street sweeping?
Street sweeping is fine.
Okay. So this machine, and you're the guy. You're doing it all the time. So you're moving around is
a majority
it
of the time I do. I mean, if I'm not there or something's up.
There's somebody else who might do it.
Yeah.
So how often do you get to a location? Because I can't imagine you're doing every quadrant in a week like garbage is. Like you might get to my block how often? Like what do you think the time frame is in between?
So here on 99th Street, it's every week.
Oh, every week.
Yeah. So we do each quadrant every day of the week.
Okay.
I mean, there are times where things come up that maybe you'll get missed a week, but no one will ever get missed 2 weeks in a row. I mean, unless it's something catastrophic. Other than like during leaf season, then the schedule kind of changes a little bit.
Oh, I'm going to get into that in a second because that's like one of my favorite things that Evergreen does, and I absolutely love the leaf thing. But before I get to that, describe this machine that you're driving along, because I always wondered as a kid with the street cleaners, is it just a brush that's sweeping the dirt around? Is it sucking up garbage? Is it spraying water? Like, what is it actually doing?
So the water comes out, and that just keeps the dust down. The brooms on the side will kick it underneath, and there's a conveyor belt. And the conveyor belt kind of rolls, and the debris and the garbage gets thrown into the hopper in the front. And then there's a main broom, the bigger one you kind of see on the bottom, that kind of just cleans everything up.
It sounds like something in a Dr. Seuss movie.
That's about right. That's about right.
You're like a Who moving through Whoville with that thing. All right, so you're moving along. People don't need to worry about moving their cars. You're able to kind of work around everybody else. You're getting to people. At least you're trying to get there once a week. It'll never go more than 2.
Right.
Am I getting that right?
Right.
Okay.
Right. And that's why when people ask how often you come by, I never say I will be here on Tuesday at this time, because
do people count on it?
Yeah.
Like, are people taking their garbage and throwing it out there under the curb? I can't imagine that, right?
There's people that will move when they
know you're coming. They want to be.
Yeah.
They want their curb cleaned.
Correct.
So they're curious about it, but there's not a set day for it.
Yes.
Okay.
So we go the Southwest quadrant is Monday.
Okay.
It's a day after your garbage day typically.
Oh, okay. So day after garbage day,
Correct.
that's when you're aiming for it.
Right.
But there could be the possibility they don't get you either because of timing, weather. I would imagine, a really busy block, something going on.
Something's going on. Sometimes, there's a car accident I have to go clean up, or something will happen.
Oh, you clean up after car accidents?
There's times. Sure. Yeah. Or, we're doing work somewhere and maybe the street's a little messy and you get called off and you have to go do that. But other than that, it's the day after your garbage day. I know Southeast quadrant was changed from Monday to Friday, garbage-wise.
Yeah.
But they're still on Tuesdays for me to come by there.
Okay. That's interesting to me. See, that's the thing. I know you're out there. I've seen you go by. I could tell when you're cleaning the street. I had no idea there was a schedule.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is Monday. This is Mondays.
Okay.
Tuesdays is Southeast. Wednesdays would be Northwest, and Thursdays is Northeast. And then Fridays, we take care of all the main, like 95th Street, Kedzie, 99th, 91st.
The big streets.
Correct.
So I see you on Friday.
Yes.
Because I'm in the Southwest quadrant, but I get you on Friday because I'm on a main street.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Very cool. All right. So let's get to the thing that I've been waiting to ask you about, and that's the leaf pickup, because I know it's coming up.
And be here sooner.
I love it. Okay. Listen, I think it's the coolest thing in the world. I get the impression that if I look at the Village newsletter the last couple of years, they continue to try to encourage people to put to pack up the leaves. Like, you don't need to throw every leaf into the street.
Right.
I just go out there with the blower and I'm just firing them. Like, it's fun for me. And I'm on 99th. So I know you're going to come along and you're going to get mine because you don't want to leave them out there. So mine, I just feel like they're not going to stay out there very, very, very long, and I will stack them up right there on the curb. So is that something that everybody's doing still? Have you seen people start to pack them up more often, or do you just know leaves are going to start falling and I've got a lot of work to do?
Well, in the beginning, when they start falling early in the fall, a lot of people do use their green cans. And then when it just gets, we're just raking out into the curb, and that's where the sweeper schedule kind of fluctuate a little bit.
And it's a different truck, right? It's got like a hose that comes down?
Right. Yeah. And then, so I will follow them. And then when it gets real heavy, we'll put 2 front end loaders out with dump trucks and just kind of, so there's no real set schedule. Like, we'll start an area and we will, until that's done, then we'll move on.
Yeah.
So it's not like, hey, you're supposed to be here Monday. During leaf season, it changes until...
Leaf season is like you're just trying to keep up.
Yeah, we're trying to keep up. Exactly.
There's a lot of trees here. I don't know if you've noticed that.
And it's about 2 weeks of where it gets really bad. And then, so we keep up the best we can.
The kids love it, though.
Yeah, the kids love the leaves.
They jump in the leaves and everything like that.
File.
I had to make a rule, especially because we're on 99th, but I had to make a rule. Like, Dad'll keep them on the grass for a while. But when I kick them into the street, do not go out there and jump in to the pile of leaves. Do you get nervous that there could be a kid just hanging out in the leaves as you're going along with the, it feels like something out of Willy Wonka. Do you get a little nervous? That there might be one that's decided to go jump in the pile of leaves?
At times, but it's funny you say that. This is probably about 25 years ago. We were picking leaves up with the 2 unloaders in the dump truck. We have a huge pile of leaves in our yard where we dump them. And our boss, Vince Aparo at the time, came running out screaming that a mother was on the phone thinking that her child was scooped up in the back of a dump truck.
Now that does sound like Willy Wonka, like just getting sucked up the tube.
It turned out the child was not there, playing in the house somewhere, but yeah, we were out looking through.
You must have been freaked.
We didn't really know what, like.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. Yeah, that was a while ago.
All right,
that's the only real close call we've had with something.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's amazing, though.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like one of the things I used to tell them. I'm like, well, the leaves are fun, play in the leaves, but they do have a machine that comes along and sucks them up, and you don't want to be sucked up in the leaves.
Right.
Little did I know that was something that somebody thought happened to their kid one time. Didn't actually happen, though. So that's a good thing. It didn't actually happen. You've been doing this for a while, though, right?
I've been with the village 32 years, and I've probably been driving a sweeper probably close to 20.
Is it the best job in your public works department? Is that why you've been doing it for so long?
A lot of people tell me that.
You're like,
I don't mind it at all.
I'm keeping this.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, look, I appreciate you stopping by. You don't get any weird things that get thrown out there with the leaves, do you? I imagine you get somebody who tries to like throw extra stuff in there that's not leaves.
The leaves, sometimes there's, there'll be garbage or concrete or something like that in there. But no, I mean, nothing too crazy.
Nothing too crazy in there. All right. So a set schedule.
Yep.
You're hitting them generally the day after garbage.
Correct.
You're hitting the busy streets on Fridays.
Right.
Don't let your kids play in the leaves in the street.
Don't do that. Keep an eye on them.
And Tim Moore may have the coolest job in Evergreen Park Public Works. That's awesome. Tim, thanks so much, man.
Thank you for having me.
It's the EP Podcast, all things Evergreen Park. It's the EP Podcast, Evergreen Park.